In this video I'm going to cover the game between Esipenko and Magnus Carlsen from round 1 of Tata Steel. It was d4, like most of the games in the round 1. Magnus answered with the classical approach, a d5, c4, e6, and now knight f3, knight f6, and knight c3. And here Magnus chose c6, going for the semi-Slav, and Esipenko went for e3, closing his bishop on c1, but defending on c4 at the same time. He's delaying the development of this bishop. Maybe he wants to put it on the long diagonal by playing b3, bishop b2 later on. As you can see, he also delays the development of the bishop on f1 because he wants to capture on c4 in one move, or to just play b3 and to recapture on c4 by the pawn, not by the bishop. Here Magnus plays knight bd7, and imagine that white plays bishop d3. Now he lost one move on bishop d3, and now black can capture. And practically speaking, white lost the tempo on this. He took on c4 in two moves, and now black can continue with b5, a6, typical Meran ideas. After this, white just waits. He plays queen c2. He waits with the bishop d3 or bishop b2. Now Magnus plays b6. He also waits with capturing on c4, and now b3. Now after every capture on c4, he's going to recapture with the pawn. Bishop b7, bishop d3. Now it's possible to go for bishop d3, and now bishop d6. If black took here on c4, then after bc, c5 is also very interesting. There are a couple of positions here that are interesting. I'm going to show you one of them. This is the one. After castling, black can take and go cd, ed. White's pawn structure is quite damaged, but after bishop d6, let's say, king h1, white can go rook g1 and maybe create some counterplay on the g file. Go with the bishop e3, maybe push f4. Black should play g6 here. I think black is also very solid. In the long run he might have the advantage, but at the moment it seems like white has the upper hand. Some potential sacrifices on g6 might come, although it's not realistic to happen. But here Magnus chose to be solid and played bishop d6, castles, and now bishop b2. Here the problem with dc, bc, and c5 is that now white has d5. And now black cannot recapture twice like this, because let's say after all this he has bishop h7. And also look at those pieces on the d file, they don't look particularly well. So after bishop b2, also queen e7 was possible, but then e4 happens, and after capturing on e4, still this is slightly better for white. Probably he has c5 next. Black is also pretty solid, but I think that black chose the best approach here to open up the diagonal for the bishop, played c5. The only downside is that after cd, ed, which happened in the game, white has a target, which is d5 pawn. Now he tries rook fd1, hitting the pawn on d5 indirectly, preparing some exchange on c5 to hit on this d5 pawn. Rook e8, and now rook ac1. White put his rooks on open files, he's ready for some exchanges. And now Magnus plays a6. Probably just avoiding any pins like bishop b5 or knight b5. It's always useful to have such a move. And here bishop f5 was played. Also, I want to mention that after rook ac1, it's not possible to go for knight e4, which is kind of prepared by rook e8. Because now after this capture, after, let's say, knight dc5, white has bishop b5, and after rook f8, I think you can capture on d5 here, but you can also go with b4, and after knight c3 to take with the queen. Knight has to go to e6 because it has to defend against checkmate. And after knight d4, white is better here because the d5 pawn is weak. Bishop on b7 is still very bad, blocked by its weakness. White has a comfortable play. But instead he went for a6 first. That's something I wanted to mention. And now bishop f5. Maybe he anticipates a move like knight e4. He wants to get his bishop out of the pawn chain. Magnus plays rook c8. And now white takes on c5 here. Now what can he do? Bishop c5 doesn't particularly do anything. Bishop has to stay on d6. It's more useful there. So bc is taken, and now knight a4. I think that here it was just better to go queen d3. And I will show you why. Here Esipenko played knight a4, and now Magnus played rook c7. But in this position he had a chance to go for d4. And the idea was that after taking, now there's bishop f3, takes, and knight d5. Going to h4 and attacking the white's king. Also, after d4, if he went for queen e2, it's not possible to capture on e3 because the bishop on d6 hangs, but it's possible to go for knight d5. And after queen f1 to just capture on e3. And now there's interesting line here after knight e3, rook d6. Now you don't capture the queen because that would just leave you with rook d7, and white has 3 pieces for a queen, which is not really favorable for black. But in this case you just capture back with the knight, black's a pawn up. Still there is some issue because there are weak pawns on the queen side. Also the bishop on b2 hits on the king side. There is still some job to be done. It's not that easy. But instead he plays rook c7 and here bishop c3 by Esipenko. Again he allows d4, but at least in this case he threatens bishop a5, so it was tougher for Magnus to decide to play this. Again, queen d3 was better in this case because d4 is met by ed4, and now there's no bishop f3, gf3. Now you can just capture with the queen and keep your pawn structure intact. That was the whole point of queen d3 in both last case and this case. But he allows this with bishop c3 targeting a5. At this moment it's even more powerful because after d4, let's say bishop a5, black can capture. Now you cannot capture back on c7 because of bishop d1. So after gf, knight e5 is good, hitting on f3. And if white goes f4, then there's knight f3 check. If king h1, I think there's queen a8. White just collapses because there's some checks like knight h4, hitting the bishop, also targeting g2. It's really scary for white. So probably it's best to go to f1, but still there's queen a8, and after bishop c7 to take on h2, and now the king gets to a very dangerous road. Black is an exchange down, but white's king is in so much danger that it doesn't matter that there is some material deficit in the position. Queen takes c5, you can give a check, king d3, and now you just capture on e3. And it's not easy to follow up with anything. There's always some knight d5 ideas, if fe, bishop f4 as well, and it's a really bad position for white. Neither of that happened. Instead, Magnus played queen e7, getting out from this bishop a5 pin. And now Esipenko chose to go bishop a5, and now Magnus played rook c6. He went back, and now they repeat moves. After this, and in this position they agreed to a draw after rook c7. If he tried something like knight b6, like let's say, this would be playing for 3 results. After capturing on f6, taking bishop h7, black's losing a pawn, but he gets a bishop pair instead. King h8, and now after bishop f5 to have some play on potentially on the h file. After taking, rook b6 goes back, king g7, and now you want to go rook h8, so h3 should be played, and now d4 would be very interesting. Now if ed, then there's bishop f3, and if gf, now you don't even capture. I think you just go queen f4 and have a decisive attack. So that's why after d4 white has to go e4 to block this bishop, but after bishop f4, rook b1, it's not easy for white to continue here, to play for a win. He has to keep this bishop blocked. He has to keep this pawn on e4, and also there is possibility to hit on e4. It's not easy to untangle for white, and the extra pawn doesn't really feel like extra pawn. So it was a smart choice by Esipenko to just repeat moves. Magnus, he couldn't play for much here. Thank you so much for watching. See you soon. I'm going to post more and more videos these days, and see you soon. Bye.